Welcome to Chapter 4, From Cells to Organ Systems. In this chapter, we will follow the path from the smallest functional unit of life, the cell, all the way to the level of the entire human body. Cells group together to form tissues, tissues combine into organs, and organs coordinate their actions in organ systems that sustain life. Understanding this hierarchy is key to appreciating how structure and function are linked. A single cell may carry out basic tasks, but survival of the organism require the integration of many cells working in cooperation. As we go through this chapter, focus on how specialization of cells allows the division of labor and how organ systems coordinate to maintain homeostasis, the internal balance that allows us to thrive even when the external environment changes. Life begins with single-celled organisms that depend directly on their surroundings. Because they consist of only one cell, unicellular organisms are extremely vulnerable to environmental fluctuations such as changes in temperature, pH, or nutrient availability. By contrast, multicellular organisms are made of many cells that work cooperatively, and their larger size allows them to regulate their internal environment. Cells in multicellular organisms specialize, taking on unique roles such as movement, communication, or defense, and they rely on each other's functions. This cooperation gives organisms independence from unpredictable external conditions and enable it to grow larger, become more complex, and survive in diverse environments. A tissue is an organized collection of cells that are similar in structure and work together to carry out a specific function. While one tissue alone may perform a role, most organs require the cooperation of multiple tissue types. The human body contains four primary categories of tissues: epithelial, connective, muscle, and nervous. Epithelial tissues covers and protects surfaces, connective tissue provides support and binds structures, muscle tissue contracts to create movement, and nervous tissue transmits information through electrical impulses. Together, these tissues form the foundation of organ function. Understanding these characteristics allows us to appreciate how each type of tissue contributes to their greater structure and function of the body as a whole. Epithelial tissues form continuous sheets of cells that line body surfaces, cavities, and passageways. They play two critical roles: protecting underlying structures and forming glands. Protective epithelia act as barriers, shielding tissues from injury, pathogens, and dehydration. Glandular epithelia are specialized for secretion, producing substances that help regulate body function. Exocrine glands secrete their products such as sweat, saliva, or digestive enzymes into ducts or hollow organs where they act locally. Endocrine glands, on the other hand, release hormones directly into the bloodstream, allowing them to reach distant organs and regulate processes like growth, metabolism, and reproduction. These adaptations highlight how epithelial cells contribute both to defense and to communication across the body. Epithelial tissue are further categorized based on shape of their cells. Squamous cells are thin and flat, providing an ideal surface for diffusion, as seen in the linings of the lungs and blood vessels. Cuboidal cells are cube-shaped and are often found in glands and the kidney tubules, where they function in secretion and absorption. Columnar cells are tall and rectangular, lining much of the digestive tract and certain reproductive organs, where they absorb nutrients and secrete mucus. Many columnar tissues include goblet cells, are specialized for mucus production, which provide lubrication and protection against chemicals or mechanical stress. This diversity of cells shape reflects how epithelial tissues adapt structurally to carry out specific functions throughout the body. Epithelial tissues is also classified by the number of layers of cells. Simple epithelium has just a single layer of cells, making it ideal for diffusion, filtration, and absorption, since substances can pass through it easily. You'll find it in the linings of the lungs, digestive tracts, glands, and reproductive systems. In contrast, stratified epithelium consists of multiple layers stacked together. This arrangement sacrifices permeability but provides enhanced protection against absorption, abrasion, pathogens, and chemical stress, as seen in the outer layers of the skin or the linings of the mouth. This classification reminds us that epithelial tissues are not one size fits all. Their structure is carefully adapted to balance permeability with protection depending on the body's specific need in that location. The basement membrane is a noncellular layer that lies just beneath epithelial tissue. It is made of proteins secreted both by the epithelial cells and by underlying connective tissues. Its primary role is to provide a strong yet flexible support base for the epithelial layer. Think of it as an anchor that stabilizes the sheet of cells, ensuring it remains attached to deeper tissues while maintaining its protective role on the surface. In addition, the basement membrane helps regulate the exchange of materials between the epithelial and connective tissue, acting as a selective barrier. Cells in the epithelial tissue are not isolated. They are held together by specialized junctions that allow the tissue to act as continuous, coordinated sheets. Tight junctions form leak-proof seals, as in the linings of the digestive tract or bladder, where containment of fluids is critical. Adhesion junctions, also called spot desmosomes, allow some movement between cells, giving tissues like the skin the flexibility to stretch out without tearing apart. Gap junctions form protein channels that permit the direct passage of ions and small molecules between cells, enabling rapid communication as seen in the heart and the liver. These connections illustrate how tissues achieve both strength and coordination, ensuring the epithelial layers function as unified barriers and communication networks. Connective tissue is the body's most diverse and abundant tissue, performing a wide range of supportive roles. It binds body parts together, providing structural integrity, cushions organs, stores fats, produces blood cells, and even participates in immune defense. A hallmark of connective tissue is the extracellular matrix, a non-living material that surrounds the cell and gives tissues its strength and resilience. The composition of the matrix is water, proteins, and polysaccharides, which varies widely, creating textures that range from soft and gel-like to firm and rigid. Fibrous connective tissue is characterized by a gel-like ground substance containing a mixture of cells and fibers. The ground substance is rich in proteins and polysaccharides that give the tissue elasticity and resilience. Fibroblasts are the key cells, producing proteins like collagen and elastin, but other immune-related cells such as macrophages and lymphocytes are also contribute to defense and repair. These fibers themselves define the tissue's properties. Collagen fiber provides tensile strength. Elastic fiber allows tissues to stretch and recoil, and reticular fibers creates a delicate framework of organs like the liver or spleen. This diversity of fibers make fibrous connective tissue versatile, supporting both a structure and supportive mesh, as well as a dynamic material that can bend, stretch, or resist pulling forces depending on its specific arrangement. Fibrous connective tissue contains three main fiber types that determine its properties. Collagen fibers are thick, strong, and slightly flexible, making them more abundant and ideal for resisting pulling forces such as tendons and ligaments. Elastic fibers are thinner and designed for stretch and recoil, allowing tissues like the lungs or blood vessels to expand and return to shape. Reticular fibers are thin strands of collagen that form an interconnected network, creating an internal framework of soft organs like the liver, spleen, and lymph nodes. In addition to fibers, fibrous connective tissue contains a gel-like ground substance and a diverse cell type. The ground substance is composed of water, proteins, and polysaccharides, providing a supportive environment for cells and fibers while influencing tissue flexibility and resilience. Fibroblasts are the primary cells responsible for producing collagen and elastin fibers. Other cells include fat cells for energy storage, mast cells that release histamine in immune responses, and white blood cells that help fight infections. There are four main types of fibrous connective tissue, each adapted for different roles. Loose or areolar connective tissue surrounds organs, muscles, and blood vessels, providing cushioning and flexibility when relatively few fibers. Dense connective tissue found in tendons, ligaments, and deep layers of skin contain many parallel collagen fibers for strength and resilience to stretch. Elastic connective tissue surrounds the hollow organs like the bladder and the stomach, where frequent change in size demands flexibility. Reticular connective tissue creates an internal framework of soft organs such as the liver and the lymphatic system. Beyond fibrous types, connective tissue also includes several specialized forms. Cartilage is a firm yet flexible tissue that cushions joints, maintains shape in the nose and ears, and provides a template for bone development. Bones form the rigid skeleton, offering structural support protection, and site for blood cell production. Blood is unique as a fluid tissue with plasma serving as the matrix that carries red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets to transport nutrients, oxygen, and waste, as well as provide immune defense. Adipose tissue consists of fat storing cells providing insulation, energy reserves, and cushioning around organs. Cartilage serves as both supportive and transitional tissue as it acts as the precursor for which bone developed during growth, while also maintaining flexibility in areas like the nose, ear, and trachea. At joints, cartilage cushions bones and reduces friction, protecting against wear and tear. Its structure is dense with collagen fibers embedded in ground substances producing chondroblasts. Mature cartilage cells, are also known as chondrocytes, become trapped in small spaces within the tissue, maintaining and repairing it. Because cartilage lacks blood vessels, it relies on diffusion from nutrients and waste exchange, which makes it slow to heal after injury. Building on cartilage, we now turn to bone, the rigid connective tissue that provides the framework for the body. While cartilage offers flexibility, bone adds the strength necessary to support weight and protect vital organs. Bones contains relatively few living cells, but its extracellular matrix is heavily mineralized with calcium phosphate, making it strong and durable. Unlike cartilage, bone is richly supplied with blood vessels, which allows it to remodel and heal more quickly than when injured. In addition to providing support, bone also houses bone marrow, the site of blood cell production. This dual role, structural and physiological, demonstrates how connective tissue evolved from flexible forms like cartilage into more permanent vascularized structures essential for overall body function. Moving from the solid bone, we now shift to a fluid connective tissue. Blood. Unlike other connective tissues, blood matrix is liquid called plasma, which carries dissolved proteins, nutrients, hormones, and wastes. Suspended in the plasma are three main cell types: red blood cells, which transport oxygen and remove carbon dioxide; white blood cells, which serve in the defense against infections; and platelets, which play a critical role in blood clotting. Together, these components make blood the body's transport medium, ensuring that every cell receives oxygen and nutrients, while wastes are carried away for excretion. From the fluidity of blood, we move next to adipose tissue, a specialized connective tissue for fat storage. Adipose cells, or adipocytes, store energy-rich triglycerides in large vacuoles, expanding and shrinking as fat is deposited or mobilized. Located under the skin and around internal organs, adipose tissue provides cushioning, insulation against heat loss, and readily available energy reserves. Unlike other connective tissue, adipose contains few fibers and little ground substance, giving its unique composition. Importantly, while weight loss reduces the size of the adipocyte, it does not necessarily decrease their number. This highlights how adipose tissue is not just storage, but a metabolically active tissue that helps regulate energy balance, temperature, and even hormone production. Transitioning from supportive tissues, we now focus on those that generate movement, the muscle tissue. Muscle fibers are long, thin cells capable of shortening or contracting, which produces movement both of body parts and within organs. Muscle tissues come in three types, each specialized for different roles. Skeletal muscle attaches to bone and allows voluntary movement. Cardiac muscle makes up the heart, contracting rhythmically and involuntary to pump blood. Smooth muscle surrounds hollow organs and tubes moving substances like food through the digestive tract or controlling blood vessel diameter. Focusing first on skeletal muscle, these tissues attach to bone via tendons and enable voluntary movement under conscious control. Each skeletal muscle is composed of thousands of parallel fibers, each containing multiple nuclei, which enhances efficiency in protein synthesis and repair. When skeletal muscle contracts, it pulls on tendons, which in turn moves bones and produces motion. This system allows us to walk, lift, speak, and perform countless daily tasks. Importantly, skeletal muscle contracts only when stimulated by nerves, reflecting the close connection between the muscular and nervous system. This voluntary control highlights how skeletal muscle fibers differ from voluntary actions in cardiac and smooth muscles, which we'll examine next. Cardiac muscle is found only in the heart and has unique properties that ensure it beats in coordinated rhythm. The cells are shorter and blunt-ended compared to skeletal muscle, and each typically contains a single nucleus. Cardiac muscle fibers are connected by gap junctions, which are specialized connections that allow electrical impulses to pass directly from one cell to another. This arrangement ensures that the heart contracts as a unit rather than as a separate fiber. Smooth muscle is composed of long, slim fibers tapered at both ends, with each cell containing a single nucleus. Unlike skeletal muscle or cardiac muscle, smooth muscle does not have visible striations under the microscope, giving it a unique and uniform appearance. It lines hollow organs and structures such as blood vessels, the digestive tract, bladder, and uterus. Contractions are involuntary and often slow but sustained, enabling processes like moving food through the intestines or regulating vessel diameter. Gap junctions connect neighboring smooth muscle cells, coordinating their ability so that large groups contract together. Nervous tissue serves as the body's rapid communication system, forming the brain, spinal cord, and nerves. Its primary cell type is the neuron, a highly specialized cell designed to generate and transmit electrical impulses. Neurons consist of cell body, dendrites that receive incoming signals, and a long axon that carries impulses over distances. Surrounding neurons are glial cells, which provide structural support, protection, and nutrients. This combination of neurons and glia ensures efficient signaling, allowing us to sense the environment, process information, and respond almost instantly. Organs are structures composed of two or more tissue types working together to achieve a specific function. For example, the heart includes cardiac muscle for pumping, connective tissue in its valves, nervous tissue to regulate rhythm, and epithelial tissue lining its chambers. This combination ensures that the heart performs efficiently as a pump. When organs with relatively roles combine, they form organ systems that perform broader tasks essential for survival. The body is organized into 11 distinct organ systems, each contributing to survival and health. Some systems have highly specialized functions, like the digestive system, which processes food and absorbs nutrients. Others serve multiple roles, such as the lymphatic system, which defends against disease, circulates body fluids, and helps transport products of digestion. By coordinating the activities of their individual organs, these systems allow the body to function as a unified whole. The human body is then further divided into internal spaces called body cavities, which house and protect vital organs. The anterior cavity is separated by the diaphragm into the thoracic and abdominal pelvic cavities. Within the thoracic cavity are two pleural cavities, each containing a lung, and the pericardial cavity, which encloses the heart. Below the diaphragm lies the abdominal cavity, holding the digestive organs, and the pelvic cavity, containing the bladder and the reproductive organs. The posterior cavity includes the cranial cavity, protecting the brain, the spinal cavity, which encases the spinal cord. Lining the cavities are tissue membranes, which consist of connective tissues combined with epithelial cells. These membranes reduce friction, protect against surfaces, and sometimes aid in secretion. Serous membranes line internal cavities and lubricate moving organs such as the lungs or the heart. Mucous membranes line passageways like the digestive and respiratory tracts, secreting mucus to trap debris and keep tissues moist. Synovial membranes line joint cavities, producing fluid that reduces friction between moving bones. Finally, the cutaneous membrane is the skin, forming a protective barrier at the body's surface. To study anatomy and human biology consistently, the body is described in terms of planes or ways of dividing it. The midcellular plane divides the body into left and right halves, while the frontal plane separates the body into front and back portions. The transverse plane slices horizontally, creating a top and bottom portion. These references allow physicians, scientists, and medical imaging specialists to describe locations and view precisely. For example, CT and MRI scans often dissect transverse or frontal sections, helping us visualize structures in cross sections. Alongside planes, directional terms provide precise description of anatomical relationships. Anterior refers to structures at or near the front, while posterior describes the back. Proximal means closer to the trunk of the body, whereas distal indicates further away. Superior refers to positions above another structure, while inferior means below. These terms create a consistent language for describing location. For example, the elbow is proximal to the wrist but distal to the shoulder. The integumentary system includes the skin, hair, nails, and associated glands. The skin itself is considered an organ because it combines multiple tissue types to perform essential functions. It provides barriers that prevent dehydration, shield against injury, and serve as the first line of defense against microorganisms. The skin also helps regulate body temperatures, produce a form of vitamin D with sunlight exposure, and house sensory receptors that detect touch, temperature, and pain. The epidermis is the outer layer of skin composed of multiple layers of stratified squamous epithelial cells. Cells at the base divide continuously, pushing older cells upward, where they eventually die and form a protective barrier. The layer has no blood vessels, so cells rely on diffusion from the dermis or for nutrients. The epidermis contains keratinocytes, which produce keratin, a tough protein that waterproofs and protects, and melanocytes, which help produce melanin, the pigment that shields against ultraviolet radiation. Beneath the epidermis lies the dermis, a thick layer of dense connective tissue that provides strength, elasticity, and support. It contains collagen and elastin fibers, fibroblasts, blood vessels and nerves, and immune cells such as mast cells and white blood cells. The dermis supplies nutrients to the avascular epidermis and plays a role in thermoregulation through its vascular network. Its structure allows the skin to withstand stretching and mechanical stress while remaining flexible. The dermis anchors accessory structures like hair follicles, glands, and sensory receptors, highlighting its importance not just as support, but also as a hub for activity vital for skin's function. Embedded within the dermis are several accessory structures. Hair grows from the follicles within the shaft extending above the skin, and the root anchored below. Each follicle is surrounded by a sheath of supportive cells and is connected to small, smooth muscles that carry the hair that cause the hair to stand upright, also known as the erector pili muscle. That is usually due to responses in the cold or fear. Sebaceous glands secrete sebum, which is an oily substance that lubricates hair and softens skin, preventing it from becoming brittle or cracked. Also within the dermis are sweat glands, which release perspiration to help regulate body temperature and excrete small amounts of waste. Sweat contains antimicrobial peptides that provide additional defenses against bacteria. Blood vessels in the dermis are equally critical, supporting and supplying oxygen and nutrients, removing waste and helping to regulate heat by dilating to release warmth or constricting to conserve it. The dermis also contains sensory nerve endings that detect temperature changes, pressure, or vibrations, as well as pain, ensuring constant awareness of the internal environment. A key theme in biology is homeostasis, the maintenance of a stable internal environment. For multicellular organisms, the immediate environment of most cells is the interstitial fluid, which surrounds them, delivers nutrients, and collects wastes. If conditions in this fluid, such as temperature, pH, or solute concentration, shift too much, cellular function is disrupted. Thus, a major portion of metabolism is devoted to keeping these conditions relatively constant. Homeostasis allows organisms to survive in changing external environments by regulating internal variables through coordinated activities of cells, tissues, and organ systems. Homeostasis is primarily maintained through negative feedback systems which work to counteract changes and bring conditions back to the set point. These systems have four main components: a control variable that is monitored, a sensor that detects changes, a control center that processes the information, and the effector that makes the adjustments. When a deviation is detected, the system activates mechanisms to reverse it. For example, if body temperature rises, sensors signal the brain, which triggers responses to lower it. A good example of a negative feedback is the regulation of body temperature. A control variable is the core temperature. Sensors in the skin and internal organs detect heat or cold and relay that information to the hypothalamus, which is the control center in the brain. The hypothalamus then activates effectors, such as blood vessels and sweat glands and skeletal muscles. If the body is too hot, blood vessels dilate and sweat glands release sweat to cool the body. If it's too cold, blood vessels constrict and muscles may generate heat through shivering. Unlike negative feedback, positive feedback amplifies changes instead of reversing them. Although relatively uncommon, it plays a role in specific biological events where rapid self reinforcing actions is necessary. A classic example is childbirth. Contractions cause pressure on the cervix, which stimulates the release of oxytocin, leading to stronger contractions and more pressure until delivery occurs. This escalating cycle ends only once the event is completed. Because positive feedback pushes conditions further from the set point, it is not used for maintaining stability, but is vital for processes requiring a decisive, rapid outcome.